Events take place a week before the start of the new semester. The girl promised her friends drinks at her expense. Then one of her friends shouted joyfully that their last stop today would be Jonah's cafe. The main character asked if her friends knew that a second floor was being built in the cafe, and now it would have to become much larger. But when the guys, after visiting all the shops, went to the cafe, they saw a closed door in front of them. The girl did not understand anything because there was still a lot of time before closing. Jonah called her mother and asked her what was the matter, but she only promised to explain everything later. At that moment, her parents were at the police station. The girl did not understand what happened and why they were there. But Mom explained that Jonah's uncle had deceived them. He ran away with money that was intended for a construction company, and the girl's parents were forced to close the cafe in order to pay the builders. The cheapest house they could find was 5 hours away from her school. But her uncle's house was located not far from the school and, due to his escape, was empty. So the parents decided that it was better for the girl to live there for a while. Mom promised to send all of Jonah's things to this house in the near future, and the girl had to live there alone. The parents were going to catch this scammer and asked their daughter to behave. Jonah did not believe that all this was happening to her in reality. Entering her uncle's house, she looked around. It still seemed to her that her parents had played a bad joke on her. She did not understand how it was possible to live in this pigsty and screamed from powerlessness. A whole week has passed since this news. Every day, the main character woke up alone in the house of her runaway uncle. There was a lot in this house that needed renovation. The main character still could not get used to living alone. And every time she left home, she spoke into the void about the fact that she had left. Jonah was at the station waiting for the train to arrive. The girl was interested in how her parents were doing. She constantly thought that the debt was not so great as to destroy their family. The worst part for her was that she didn't have any of her friends nearby, and until her uncle was caught, she would have to walk to school alone. Jonah believed that if this continued, she would be left completely alone. At that moment, a tall, dark-haired guy climbed onto the platform. Seeing him, the girl thought that she had suffered brain arrest. She managed to come to her senses only after she heard the announcement that the train doors were closing. She was interested in who this guy was, because he was wearing their school uniform. The main character looked at him again, and once again I realized that he was handsome. She imagined how many times in her life she would remember this moment. The girl imagined how in old age she would tell this story to her grandchildren, who would laugh at her and say that they had already heard it many times. Jonah decided that she should either talk to him or leave. But in this case, she would not regret her action in the future. She handed him a pack of goodies and asked if he liked marmalade. It seemed to the girl that goodies were the best helpers when meeting people. The guy looked at her, not understanding what was happening. The girl realized that he had not noticed her. She felt the awkwardness of the situation and decided that it was time to stop playing with one goal, then said that she just noticed the uniform of their school and therefore decided to say hello to him. He thanked her for the gummies, saying that he really liked them too. And she lit up again, deciding that he was handsome and kind. This girl thought he was a cool guy. She didn't know his parents, but they clearly raised their son well. Jonah chatted all the way. She assumed that they were the same age, and this guy was also in 3rd grade. She was glad that now she would often see him on the way to school, but then she fearfully asked if he already went to school with someone else, and she suggested that he do it together because it seemed boring to her to go to school alone. The guy answered all her questions in short phrases, and the main character could not understand whether he was shy or whether he simply did not like her. Jonah finally remembered that she didn't even ask his name and decided to introduce herself. The guy's name was Kim Ye-han. The girl thought that her interlocutor's name was the same as the guy about whom there were many rumors, but she told him that his name was very religious and suggested that one of his parents was a Catholic. Ye-han was interested in why the girl was asking him about this. Realizing that the guy was angry, she said that she didn't mean anything bad and thought that she needed to figure out how to change the subject. Jonah pointed to the plaque on the wall and said it was their class motto. It said, "Start small to end big." Every time the main character heard or saw this phrase, it gave her strength. They were already in their 3rd year, and therefore they needed such support. He asked her if she knew where this phrase came from. However, the main character was not entirely sure of her origin. And then Yehan said that this slogan was taken from the book of Job, chapter 8, verse 7. Job's friend did this in order to defeat him. The girl was very surprised to hear this information. She felt like a complete fool, but could not understand why this was happening. Finally, they arrived at the desired stop. In the school class, friends told the main character that from the very first day of school, she looked very gloomy. The girls did not understand how she could live in that house, but Jonah said that it was not the house at all. There was another small room and even a second floor. The girl thought that it might be worth renting it out. She said that the house was quite spacious and quite suitable for living together, after which her friends promised to definitely come visit her in the near future. The house was normal except for the green water in the sink, and the sound like something was about to fall from the ceiling. The girls did not understand how the main character's uncle could do this to his family. But besides Jonah's family, there were other victims. People were building 10 buildings, and their funds were not even enough to cover the construction costs. She couldn't even imagine how many people her uncle had deceived. After the conversation, the girl asked her friends not to tell anyone about what had happened. The friends decided to switch the conversation to another topic and asked the main character if she had heard the story about Kim Ye-han, about whom absolutely everyone was talking at the moment. Jonah jumped up from her seat, wondering what happened to him. One of the friends pointed her finger at the window, and she asked if the main character saw a building that looked like a stake inserted into the ground. This building is being built in honor of the apocalypse of John the Evangelist about the Millennial Kingdom, the most famous sect in their area. Jonah knew about them. They had over 100,000 subscribers on their channel. Kim Ye-han was the son of the founder of the sect, and this boy was their classmate. But the main character's friends believed that she did not know him because she lived in another area. The main character had a bad feeling. These sects terrified all children. Ye-han walked into the classroom and took a seat right behind the main character. At this time, all their classmates were whispering that they did not want to study with the sectarian and were afraid of being drawn into all this. One of the friends began to shake the main character, trying to convey to her the information that the guy who entered was the very son of the sectarians, and Jonah timidly said that she knew about it. Meeting this guy was the harbinger of a storm. The next evening, the main character finally decided to clean up her uncle's house. Now her new home felt like home. The girl thought that there was only a year left, and therefore everything should be fine. Just finishing cleaning, she heard a noise outside the door. The girl was not expecting anyone, but hurried to the door to check who came to her. Opening the door with all its might, she hit the person standing on the porch very hard with it. She was very concerned about what had happened and began to apologize to the guest, saying that last week she had broken the Gasman's nose in this way. She wondered if this man was okay. The main character was very surprised when she realized who had decided to visit her. In front of her was Kim Ye-han. She remembered that her uncle had deceived not only her family. Jonah remembered the events of that morning. The girl decided to learn about the new teaching in general detail. So she learned about the new god, about the people of Kim Ye-han's father, and that a powerful Satan would appear in their world, who would destroy humanity and rule the world for 1,000 years. Ihan did not appear on Nutuba. However, this new god has a son, and she believed that it was undoubtedly him. She believed that people looked at everything superficially, and therefore knew absolutely nothing about it. Now, why did Yehan react so coldly to all her questions then? He thought that she was the same as all these people, but she didn't mean any sect. The girl knew absolutely nothing about it. But now it no longer mattered at all. She noticed that Yehan goes to school with a suitcase, and she couldn't understand why he needed it. She knew that the guy did not live in the hostel and assumed that he could have left home. The girl was interested in whether his parents knew about this. She was worried about whether he had a place to stay for the night. At dinner, Janie asked if her friends knew why Yehan ran away, but Clara said that they could only guess about the reasons for his escape. Janie suggested that this could be due to a quarrel in the family, but Clara said that his parents get along well. Then the interlocutor suggested that all this could be due to stress due to study, but the guy had very good grades. The girls started arguing. They didn't understand why he ran away from home. Then Jonah suggested that he simply was not a member of the sect. Perhaps he left home because he was the only normal one there. The main character's friends believed that, judging by his appearance, he ran away from home because he had somewhere to go. He knew exactly where he would go and planned to stay in this house for a long time. A boy sitting at the next table said that while passing by the teacher's room, he saw something there. Jonah became interested in what he could see there. And then he said that Yekun had talked with the teacher there about his leaving home. The boy's parents knew that he had left home. They saw him carrying a suitcase. Therefore, the teacher should not have worried that the school might have problems with his parents. Yekun believed that they had more important things to do than him leaving. The main character was very sorry for her classmate. After this conversation, the class teacher sent the guy to class without any questions. The girls thought it strange that the guy ran away from home in front of his parents, but they didn't care about it. It started to rain outside the window, and the main character began to worry whether everything would be fine with Kim Ye-han. The main character was interested in what he was thinking about, so carefree. From his appearance, it seemed that he had no reason to worry. She couldn't believe that he could give up and return home. The girl was interested in his further actions. She wanted to talk to him, but she thought that she could not help him in any way and ran out of the office in a hurry. She thought that her family had been deceived and she needed to take care of herself. And now she didn't understand why this guy was standing in front of her house. He asked the hostess for permission to enter the house. Jonah didn't understand why he needed this, but he explained, saying that he needed to tell her something. The main character wanted to know what he wanted to talk to her about, and she allowed him to enter the house. Jonah asked what was so important that he wanted to tell her, since he even went to see her in the rain. And besides, she didn't understand how he found out her address. He said that her uncle had deceived the teaching of the second coming. The main character did not immediately believe the words of her classmate. Yehan remembered that Jonah said that this man deceived her family too. His father was now desperately searching for this scammer. The girl did not quite understand what her interlocutor told her, and so she decided to clarify whether her uncle stole money for construction from the teaching of the second coming, to which she received an affirmative answer. She didn't understand if he had stolen the money to build that big building that looked like Godzilla. He stole about 100 billion won from them. The guy tried to calm the girl down, saying that the school was already looking for this scammer. He promised that it would also be possible to return her family's money. She just needed to listen to his conditions, and in that case, her family would not have to worry about this problem. The main character was interested in what conditions he was talking about. She suggested that she would have to register in this teaching, but he simply asked her to rent him one room in this house. He was sure that they couldn't catch this man just by chasing him, but the girl was confident that her family would be able to catch her uncle even without training, because they knew him much better than strangers. However, the guy insisted that the main character did not need to be so careful with him. Now they were on the same team and they had a common goal to catch her uncle. She didn't want to get involved with the sect at all. Jonah tried to calm herself down, but she still didn't understand why he came to her house for this conversation. He said there was something else and promised to tell her about it soon. The main character tried to close the door on him, saying that she didn't want to know anything about it and wishing him luck, but he tried to hold the door and addressed her by name. The girl was surprised that he addressed her by name. He grabbed the main character by the shoulders and asked her to think carefully about his proposal, and she screamed at him not to let go of his hands. Yehan said that this was not an offer from the teaching, and then the girl realized that it was blackmail on their part. The guy said that she thinks surprisingly quickly, and the girl looked at him and asked if he was too close to her located. He tried to tell her that later she might regret her actions, and therefore she should let him into the house. But the girl did not understand anything due to the fact that she covered his mouth with her hand. Then she said that he was getting closer to her. Therefore, he must first move away from her, and only then say what he wants. The main character didn't understand how they could just blackmail people like that. She asked him to stop saying stupid things and just listen to him, since it was already late and it was raining. He had to stay in her house for one night. Since her uncle deceived his family too, she would be ashamed if she kicked him out under such conditions. But this did not mean that she agreed to the help of the teaching. The girl was sure that her family would be able to cope with the capture of her uncle on their own. She told him that there was a free room on the second floor. Yehan thanked Jonah and said that most likely he misunderstood her. He believed that she was not at all like her uncle. The girl believed that by letting Yekin into the house, she had made a huge mistake. Waking up in the morning and stretching, the girl left her room. She completely forgot that Jahan spent the night in her house, and therefore was very scared when she heard him say good morning, and he sat completely calmly and watched the main character. At that moment, the girl remembered about how a suspicious, uninvited guest came to her house last evening. He told her that her uncle had defrauded their family of a colossal amount. The main character asked if he had packed his things, and he replied that he was just getting ready for school. The girl indignantly asked if he really had no intention of leaving her this morning, but he assured her that he would pick up his things after school. She noticed a sandwich from a convenience store in his hands and said that people need to eat properly in order to survive. But Jahan replied that he eats like this every day and is still fine. Jonah didn't understand why he ate convenience store food every day. She thought that they should have enough money for a normal existence because his father is the owner of such a building. However, the girl suggested that by buying food at a convenience store, the rich feel closer to the common people. Classmates were surprised to see Jahan. He didn't look like he'd slept in a cozy home and gotten a good night's sleep. However, Clara said that despite the rain yesterday, he looked soft and fluffy, and Janie added that today he only came with a school bag. She believed that this guy was not an ordinary child. Everyone was interested in where he spent the night that night. However, they believed that this person was not from their school. Otherwise, he would immediately be called a sectarian. The girls asked Jonah what she thought about this, but the confused girl replied how could she know? Janie said that she could know due to the fact that they study in the same class. The main character decided to at least answer something and expressed her assumption, saying that he could have spent the night with someone from their sect. She was interested in whether this sect was really so strong, and whether they could, if they wanted, get rid of some store or their cafe, for example. One of the girls said that in fact they had already eliminated the enemy. While still in elementary school, Jahan got into a fight with some boys because of his bad mood, and soon their parents' stores went bankrupt. The reason was unknown to anyone, but it seemed to everyone that Jahan's father had done it, and these words made the main character very scared. The girl did not understand anything at all. Then, using the excuse of concern, they ruined an entire store, and now they calmly stood and watched as their son left the house. She believed that in their case, common sense had left the chat. She thought that if she had thrown her classmate out into the street yesterday, their cafe could have suffered the same consequences. She should have held off on evicting Jahan. Arriving home after class, she told the guy that he could stay for a while longer. Hearing this, he didn't believe it and decided to ask again, and she repeated that he could not stay on the second floor for long. Jahan thought her behavior was suspicious, but the girl said that they were now one team, and she thought that she was afraid of his father. The main character was not even going to delve into the affairs of the sect. She was only interested in saving her family. Jahan didn't know what his classmate was up to, but he considered it all useless, and when he said this, he suddenly coughed. The girl was scared that he might have caught a cold because of yesterday's rain. She believed that while he was in her house, he should under no circumstances be allowed to get sick. Jonah said that if he neglected his cold, it could get worse and told him to put on his pajamas. She brought him oatmeal and told him to eat at least a little. Then she wrapped him in a blanket and told him that his body needed to be kept warm. The main character believed that in order to get better, he needed to sleep and sweat a lot. But her guest was sure that at this rate, she would burn him before he had time to recover. Ekin was interested in whether she was treating him in some traditional way, and the girl replied that this was the normal way in her family, after which she asked the guy to tell him how they were treated at home for colds. And then he said that if he did not go to the emergency room to receive treatment, he could only rely on his prayers. The main character could not believe that his parents were so irresponsible about his health. The guy said that since his faith is weak, a chill emanates from his body, just like from a corpse. Jonah tried to digest the information she had received, believing that he was talking some kind of nonsense, and he asked her for some more porridge. The girl became more and more convinced of her normality. She told the guest to lie down and promised to prepare more porridge. Before heading to the kitchen, she asked the guy to ask his father for news about her uncle, but he said that now he has a headache. At first, the girl thought that she hated this guy, but then she decided that he was still sick, and therefore she needed to be a little more lenient towards him. The main character abandoned all household chores. She spent almost all her time near Yekun's bed. She asked if perhaps she should change the towel on his forehead, but the guy assured that everything was fine. Hearing his voice, the girl thought that he already sounded much better. If you look at him, he looked quite normal, but everyone considered him a cultist. Opening his eyes, Yehun noticed that the main character was watching him. Jonah was confused when she realized that she had been caught doing this. This whole situation lifted the patient's spirits, and the main character thought that it didn't matter whether he was a sectarian or not. She was simply caring for a sick person who needed help. She didn't understand what was going on in her head, but every time she looked at his face, she was sure to be hooked. Jonah thought that she needed to pull herself together and think about her parents' concerns. She simply had to maintain a good environment at home. Now was not the time to fawn over cults. When the girl arrived at school, the teacher told her that she had just spoken with her parents. She was very sorry that this happened to the girl, but still her parents requested a full refund of her tuition fees. From the next day, the girl could not attend classes, and everyone around began to whisper that their family had been deceived by her uncle. She considered this situation ridiculous and did not understand why her parents made this decision without even consulting her. This simply could not happen. After the lesson ended, the teacher asked Jonah to stay behind to talk to her. The main character did not understand what she wanted to talk about. On the way home, the main character was thinking about what everyone was discussing, that things were getting worse and worse for her parents. And the courses were too expensive. Her parents and her teacher decided that she would have to prepare for the upcoming exams on her own. Jonah didn't understand why they couldn't discuss this issue with her first. And all this happened the day before the test. On the test in second grade, her results were not very good, and the information at school and on the internet was not enough to prepare. So she needs to find a way to pass these exams, no matter what it is will cost her. The main character was confident that nothing could interfere with her future. She imagined that Yehan would help her prepare for the exams. Approaching the house, the girl saw that the lights on the second floor were turned off. Because of this, she was concerned about the condition of her guest. She thought that perhaps he had decided to return home. It was strange for her that there was no light in the house. It seemed to her as if she had already gotten used to Yehan's presence in her house. But suddenly the girl heard his voice. She was scared because she thought the guy had left. She didn't understand how the guy could study in the dark. But when she saw the volume that he completed, the girl was amazed and asked how he managed it, and he said that he simply flipped through the book. School lessons and online courses were enough for him. The guy did not see the need to attend a preparatory course. Yehan was in 5th place in the entire school in terms of academic performance. He definitely had a great future ahead of him. The main character even envied him a little. She told the guy that she was kicked out of preparatory courses, but then said that of course this did not concern him. But the guy said that he could help her with preparation if there were problems that she could not solve. Yehan took great pleasure in explaining to the main character ways to solve problems that she did not know. The girl asked all the questions that interested her, and her guest explained everything in great detail. In order to make it more convenient to explain, Yekun suggested that the main character move closer to him. He began to explain to her in detail why the incorrect answer options were incorrect. At this time, the main character was watching him and thinking about how amazing he was. No matter at school or in courses, Jonah always found it difficult to understand teachers, and therefore she thought that Yehan would soon give up on her. But he explained everything calmly and patiently, and they managed to solve problems that the girl could not do in the courses. He asked if the girl had any more questions, but she said that they had already decided everything and thanked him for his help. Yekun said that if she had any questions, she could contact him at any time, because in any case, he needed to repeat the material he had covered. Jonah was very happy with her results and thanked the guy again for his help. She almost fell in love with this guy. It turns out that this is how people are charmed. But the girl believed that their relationship was like that of a crocodile and a crocodile. There was no place for feelings in them. Their relationship would end immediately after her uncle was caught. The mock exams were over and everyone was very happy about it. After the practice exam, the girls went out to eat, and Clara asked her friends what their test results were. Jonah thought that the exam had not gotten any easier, even after all her torment and training with Yehan. Janie said that they came to the cafe to unwind and asked the main character to put away her test. At this time, a waiter approached their table and handed Jonah a note. Everyone was interested in what was there and why he left so quickly. This note said that in this cafe, all visitors could count on a comfortable time, and therefore the girls were asked to refrain from loud conversations, and they were also informed that visitors could sit in the cafe for 1 hour. The girls were outraged because they had been sitting in the cafe for an hour and only drank a glass. Then Clara suggested going to another cafe. Jonah believed that if they were in their cafe, then no one would kick them out of it. All the friends looked at the main character. They decided that there was her house, which was located nearby. They all got ready, but Jonah couldn't believe that they were really going to go to her house. Ekin did not attend preparatory courses, so he was at home at that time, and Jonah could not think of anything at all on how she could hide him from her friends. She didn't have his number and decided to contact him through the social network skating rink. She prayed to God that Yehan would pick up the phone. The main character did not understand why he could be so busy that he did not answer her call, and the guy just decided to start cleaning. Meanwhile, the girls were already approaching her house. They were glad to see their shelter for this day, and the main character continued to try to reach her new neighbor. After turning off the vacuum cleaner, Yehan heard someone's voices at the door. These were girls who did not understand why the door to the house was open, because Jonah lived alone. Janie began to scold her friend because someone could have broken into her house, and Jonah began to worry even more because she realized that Yehan was definitely at home. She was very scared and didn't know what to do, but without hearing any frightening sounds, the girl nevertheless made up her mind and opened her eyes. The girls were surprised that their friend's house was so clean and comfortable. It seemed to them that this house was so spacious for one person. The main character assumed that Yehan had not yet come home. She asked her friends to wait for her on the porch and ran into the house. The girls did not understand what kind of secrets their friend could have. She ran around the house, looking into every room in search of the guy. It seemed to her that he was nowhere to be found, despite the fact that he was supposed to return home immediately after the mock exam, and the girls were already shouting from the porch, asking if they could come in. Jonah thought that she should have thought about the fact that he was simply not at home. But at that moment, she noticed Yekan's phone lying on the table. While her friends were looking around the house, the owner hastily decided to put the phone away before anyone noticed it. She realized that the neighbor was still within the house, but did not understand where to look for him. The girl decided to look under the table, and she found a frightened guy there who was waiting for an explanation from her. Having found her neighbor, she herself was very frightened. The main character became even more excited when she heard the approaching voices of her friends, who wanted to compare their answers in the test sample and suggested doing it in the kitchen. She understood that she could not allow them to see her neighbor, and then she said that for her the kitchen is just as sacred as the bed, after which she asked the girls if they went to bed in outerwear. She didn't want her friends to come into the kitchen, and she said that if they wanted, she would definitely bring them water or other drinks. Yehan breathed a sigh of relief when he heard that the girls would be in the room. Jonah returned to the guy and apologized to him, and he asked her to explain everything to him. The girl said that she couldn't think of anything to stop her friends, and asked the guy to sit in his hiding place a little longer. Then he asked her to hurry up, because he wouldn't be able to sit there for too long. He told her to invite her friends to come another time. She did not have time to answer him. Hearing her friend approaching and calling her, the girl jumped out from under the table. Her friends apologized to her for such an unexpected visit and brought her favorite pasta. Jonah was very happy with this gift and asked them to wait in the room and ran to get drinks. Yehan tried to remind her that she promised to send the girls home. He was very upset when he realized that the girl was not going to do this. He was in despair and sitting under the table watched the clock hanging on the wall. Jonah mentally apologized to the guy for not being able to immediately apologize to her friends and send them home. Quite a lot of time had passed, and the girl was worried about how her neighbor felt there. She understood that in such a cramped place, with his height, he could not even really move. Jonah begged the guy to hold out a little longer because very soon they were supposed to go to classes. She thought that her friends, fortunately, did not notice anything. One of the friends asked the hostess where the toilet was. She ran past Yehan, who was hiding. From the fact that the guy's whole body was numb and from anxiety, sweat began to flow down his face. He thought that Jonah should not let her friend walk around the house alone. Jonah heard the phone ring, and I realized that it was Yekan's phone ringing. An unknown number was calling. The friends asked if the girl would not answer the call, and she said that it was an unknown number calling and she would not answer. However, the friends thought it was better to answer because the phone continued to ring. They believed that it could be an urgent call. Leaving the room, the girl thought whether she could decide to answer this call or not. But it was an ordinary phone, and she decided that there was nothing wrong if she answered the call. She heard that the caller called Yehan a son of a bitch and asked if he wanted to return home. The caller was interested in whether it was not enough for the guy that he ran away from home, and he suggested that the guy wanted to die. The main character was very frightened by this call. The caller believed that Yehan did not even know about the construction and promised to drown him in the river along with Takmujin. The girl still didn't understand who the caller was. It seemed to her that this was some kind of criminal. The girl hoped that he simply had the wrong number and decided that it would be better to hang up. But she realized that whoever he was, he knew her uncle Takmujin. And then the man asked who she was because he was calling Yekan's phone. And then she realized that she had a woman's voice, and she was caught on this. And the man was interested in where Yehan found this schoolgirl. Jonah assumed that this man was Yehan's father. She was surprised to realize that this man was the founder of the doctrine of the Second Coming, because she believed that the founder was a priest. This man wanted her to give the phone to Yehan, but if he finds out that the guy is at her house, then there will be trouble. The caller decided to apologize to Yehan's friend and asked her to forget everything she heard, after which he asked Yehan to call him back when the girl returned his phone. The main character was shocked by what had happened, and after her friends began to look out of the room, wondering who the girl had been talking to for so long. Jonah didn't understand if that was all the man was interested in, how he could not worry about his son running away, how he could not be interested in where he slept and what he ate. Her friends approached the main character and were about to leave, but she didn't seem to notice them. Finally, her friends went to school. The girl hurried to the kitchen to Yehan, who had already crawled out from under the table and was finally able to relax and lie down on the floor. He was interested in whether the girl was talking to his father. She sat down next to him and asked what he said about how the teaching would help her family. Jonah wanted to know why he came to her house. The guy said that he had nowhere else to go, but she screamed that that was not what she was interested in. She didn't understand why the hell he tricked her into letting him into the house. And Yekan repeated that he simply had no other choice, but the main character believed that he could simply return home. Because his father was seriously angry, she was interested in what would happen if he found out where his son was. Yekan tried to calm the girl down, saying that her father was angry because they had been robbed of every last one, and that he was lashing out on the phone rather than looking for them, because all his efforts were being spent on catching her uncle. Jonah didn't understand why Yekan spoke so calmly about this, because it all concerned him too. She didn't understand why he acted as if he didn't care that the teaching could be destroyed. The guy didn't know what to answer. While conducting such an important dialogue, they did not keep track of the pan that was on the stove. Yekan tried to understand what was most important for his interlocutor at the moment. If it was about safety, then there were no problems with that, because his father didn't care where he was. But Jonah was determined and said that the interlocutor should not even try to evade, because in the conversation his father put him on the same side as her uncle. She certainly did not think that he was involved in this story, but she needed to know whose side he was on. After which she threatened, saying that if he lies again, she will simply throw him out of the house. But he asked how she knew if she could make him leave. The girl did not understand what Yehan was going to do. Yekan didn't understand why his interlocutor closed her eyes. The girl excitedly asked if this wasn't the same thing, and the guy didn't understand what she was thinking about and what kind of vulgar thoughts were in her head. But she believed that he was the one who started it, and the guy said that he was just trying to stop her so that she didn't throw him out into the street. He called her a crazy pervert and told her not to come near him again. Jonah shouted after him that he was running away again. Yekan, who locked himself in his room, simply did not know what to answer her. The next day, on the way to school, The girl thought that yesterday he locked himself in his room. Today he ran away from home even before she woke up, but she must find out the truth by any means. Arriving at the class, she saw that Yekan's place was empty. She was interested in where he was, but out loud she asked her friends what they were doing. They showed her the Instagram account of the school cat and told her that previously only they knew about her, but recently her popularity had grown greatly. Eiji looked after her, fed her, and gave her all the vaccinations. The girls considered her a great, smart girl. However, a classmate sitting nearby believed that they were mistaken about Yeji. The girls believed that no one wanted to communicate with her except this cat and Sonu. But the most important thing was that the girls considered her an ardent fanatic of the doctrine of the Second Coming. Yeji began praying on the way home from school on the subway train. Her friend asked her to stop doing this in front of strangers. Yekan was watching them from the next carriage. After classes, Jonah met Yekan in the train car and told him that he would become a corpse if he returned home, but he was interested in what the girl would do if someone took them away. But the main character was calm, because she believed that no one except Yekan traveled this route and promised to pursue him until he told her about the reason for his escape from home and about his father's affairs. The guy said that before going home he needed to go somewhere. Jonah didn't understand where he was going. She promised to follow him even when they left the subway, but the guy, without listening to her, left the car, pulling her along with him. The girl did not understand where they were going, and Yekan was in no hurry to explain anything to her. The guy led her to the store. The main character definitely didn't expect this. She didn't understand what they forgot there, but Yehan said that they were going shopping. There was too much expired food in their refrigerator. The porridge that Jonah fed him last time was last year, but the girl believed that he would not die if he ate something expired. The main character brought this porridge from home. Yehan decided to put sunglasses and a hood on her, but the girl didn't understand why he was doing this. Then he explained that it was necessary for disguise, in case they met someone they knew. Jonah didn't understand who appointed him in charge, but the guy only responded by inviting her to go home. While Yehan was walking and choosing groceries, the girl followed on his heels and muttered that she was the landlady, and therefore he should try to please her so that she would not throw him out into the street. The guy decided that in this case, he also had something to blackmail the main character because he could tell her friends about everything. He could talk about living in her house, and he was there at the moment when they came to visit her. Well, and about many other things that she hid. Yekan said that he could tell her parents about all this, after which the girl asked if he really wanted her to die. Then the guy said that if she didn't like his proposal, then she should just go with him. Seeing a cart full of groceries, the girl asked if he really had that much money. Jonah began to sort through the products he had chosen. She didn't understand why they needed 20 kilograms of rice, because they didn't even have a rice cooker. Vegetables and fruits tended to spoil quickly, and therefore had to be bought for one time. She didn't understand the advantages of his good grades at school. She left only frozen food and said that this was the most suitable choice in their poor situation. The main character did not understand whether he had never gone shopping with his ancestors, because all her advice was the basis of the basics. Hearing these words, Yehan remembered how he always sat at home alone, waiting for his parents. And even when the mother came home, she did not give the boy due attention. She simply threw money so that he could buy food. He remembered how he ate store-bought food all the time and spent almost all his time with his phone or a book, because he never had friends. Remembering all this, he said that if he had that money now, he would definitely buy beef. Jonah heard this and asked if he wanted beef. But when she saw its cost, the main character said that it was too expensive a purchase and asked if her neighbor had money. After he took out a wad of banknotes from his pocket, the girl could not resist asking where he got so much money from. And then he talked about how his mother gave them to him, but he didn't know what to do with them, and so he put them aside. The guy never thought that he would spend them like this, but now he understood that everything had turned out very well. The main character wonders if he started saving them even before the teaching was founded. Then the girl suggested that his parents were often not at home, and the guy asked if her parents also often went out. But this was not so, because they did not have extra money for this. And then Jonah talked about how her parents didn't even rest at home because they took on all the possible homework, glued envelopes, glued eyes on dolls, and many other different tasks. Even the main character had to help them when they couldn't keep up. And with this collected money, they decided to expand their cafe. They have been dreaming about this expansion for a very long time. But this swindler stripped them down to the last thread. This was not the first time that her sister got into trouble like this. Then Yehan realized that this girl also had a hard time. But the main character believed that it was not easy for him either, since he even decided to run away. She still wanted to know why he took this step. The guy didn't know where to start, but he still made up his mind and said that he ran away for a specific purpose. The girl was interested in what specific goal her neighbor had in front of her, and then he said that she herself answered this question yesterday. He was not at all interested in what would happen if the teaching went bankrupt. The girl thought she noticed her uncle in the crowd, and she rushed to run after him. Yekan did not understand what was happening and where she rushed. Jonah said that she saw her uncle there. She was sure that it was him. She suggested that the man might have forgotten something in his house, and because of this, he had to return. But Yekan shut her mouth, and the girl did not understand why he was doing this. The main character tried to break free, but the guy couldn't let her go. Then she decided to bite his hand. Yehan felt severe pain and therefore had to let his classmate go. The girl rushed in the direction in which she saw her uncle, shouting that the scammer should stay in his place. But the guy caught up with her again and tried to stop her, grabbing her by the hood. He said that she couldn't go there, but the main character didn't understand why and said that if he doesn't want to help, then at least he shouldn't interfere. The girl decided to draw attention to them and calling him brother. She screamed that she didn't want to steal these glasses, and she didn't need clothes at all. The people around did not understand what was happening. Was this schoolboy really forcing his sister to steal? The people who came up began to search him and found a large amount of money in his bag. They were interested in where he got it, but the guy didn't understand why they didn't believe that it was his money. While Yehan was trying to escape from the people surrounding him, Jonah ran after her uncle. The girl was sure that it was him. She looked around, trying to figure out where he had gone. And finally, I noticed him again among the people in the elevator. The girl ran to them, asking them to hold the doors. But someone said that the elevator was crowded, and the girl had to wait for the next one. But she didn't need the next elevator at all. Jonah thought that maybe she should go down the stairs, but then she decided that she might have mistaken herself. The girl's thoughts were interrupted by Yekan, who caught up with her. The guy asked her to finally listen to him. He promised to explain everything to his classmate. The main character looked at him with a confused look. She didn't know what he could tell her. Meanwhile, the man in the elevator diligently continued to press the button, and the woman standing next to her said that they could have waited for that girl. She was sure that there was quite enough space for one person. The guy apologized to the woman, saying that his friend was in a hurry. He whispered, asking the girl if it was Jonah's voice, but she was not sure. After the store, the guys went to the playground, deciding to ride on the swings. Yekan was not sure that the girl heard what he said to her in the store. He hoped that the doctrine of the second coming would be dissolved. That is why the guy did not tell his father about the deception, and he was not ready for it. Yekan knew everything, and thought that if his father noticed this, he would definitely kill him. That is why he lied to his father that he was going to the dormitory and left home. The teaching is a very closed organization. They refuse outside interference and develop cohesion. Until Jonah's uncle appeared, the guy was sure that this organization could only be destroyed from within. He knew that if the teaching did not return its money, then it would never be able to be revived. The life of the entire teaching was in the hands of this swindler. Yekan knew that he would never have such a chance again. He understood that the main character was not concerned about sect issues, but he wanted Jonah to at least pretend to listen to him. At that moment, the girl understood why her new neighbor was trying to stop her. The guy believed that if she learned more about the teaching, she would definitely understand it. The main character was interested in whether Yehan would allow her uncle to leave if he suddenly showed up. After all, they lived in his house, and he could return there one day. Would the guy really decide to stop her then? But he believed that he would have no other choice. Jonah was upset because teaching was more important to him. She decided to end their conversation here and got up from the swing to leave. Yehan didn't understand what she meant by finish. She hurried after the main character. The main character was upset and told the guy to leave her house. Yehan was interested in whether the girl behaved this way because of the money for expansion. He believed that it was impossible to go bankrupt because of such a sum. After all, many could get that kind of money. But Jonah was not ready to make such a sacrifice to destroy the teaching. The guy didn't understand why the main character was so angry, because what she was so worried about had not yet happened. Yekan realized that he could not stop her family from catching her uncle. But it wasn't just that made Jonah angry. She was even more pissed off that he didn't tell her the truth. The main character did not understand why he decided that after listening to him, she would allow him to stay. The girl did not understand why he did not think about the risk she took by allowing him to stay in her house, be it her friends or his father. If one of them saw him, then it might be too dangerous for her. No matter what he said, there was only one teaching in his head. The guy was sure that if he told her the truth, she would simply throw him out into the street, and the girl confirmed his assumptions. The guy was sure that Jonah believed that he had betrayed her, but he assumed that she only allowed him into her house because she was afraid of the teaching. Jonah told him that things weren't what he thought they were. In this case, the guy did not understand why she took such a risk and settled him in her house. He was right. John did it out of fear. Ekan was interested in what else prompted her to do such an act. Looking at him, the girl thought that she would never tell him about this. She told him that she didn't know why she decided to do this, but he didn't calm down and wanted to hear the truth. The guy didn't understand why she didn't want to tell him the truth. And then the main character told him that he was too noisy and told him to get out of the house. She no longer wanted to live with him under the same roof. Running into her room, the girl saw a pile of packages standing in front of her. She didn't understand what it was. Was it really her favorite pasta? Yehan said that this was all for her, but she did not understand why the guy was giving her such gifts. And then he said that the girl had done a lot for him, and he had been thinking for a long time about how he could repay her. All he managed to learn while sitting under the table was that she really loved pasta, and so he decided to buy it. The girl suggested that he bought the whole store. She couldn't even imagine how much it all could cost. Yehan decided to tell her that this was not a gift. The girl realized that she was in an awkward situation. She thought again that letting Yehan into the house was a dangerous decision. The girl remembered a moment from her childhood, how she sat doing her homework. And my mother asked her uncle, who came to visit them, to look after her. The man asked why the girl was not paying attention to him, and she said that she was busy doing her homework. Looking into her notebook, the man saw that his niece was busy composing a poem. He wanted to see what his niece had written there. She wrote that love is a grenade. The man did not understand when his niece managed to grow up so much. He couldn't believe that the girl herself wrote this verse. The girl was interested in whether she could win with this verse, and her uncle was confident that she would definitely win. However, he believed that the most important part of her poem was missing. The man began to dictate and ordered the girl to write down all his words. He told her what love is, and she came up with the following. Love is a grenade. The grenade has a pin. The pin protects against the grenade exploding. As soon as you pull out the pin, click tick-tock, knock-knock. The inside of the grenade will burst into flames. Jonah put all her thoughts aside and began to eat. Yehan couldn't believe that this was all her dinner, but the girl said that a hamburger was also food. He had no doubt, which was fine for her anyway, but the refrigerator was empty, and he was interested in what she was going to eat the next day. The girl remembered that just recently she told Yekan to get out of the house. She was determined, and her decision was final. She mentally put all the pros and cons of living with Yehan on the scales. And I realized that in this situation there was nothing to even think about. The girl said that the market would be closed tomorrow and suggested going to it the day after tomorrow. While the main character was stretching, he noticed blood on her hand. Jonah assumed she had hurt herself while chasing her uncle, but she couldn't find the scratch. John wondered if Yehan knew Yeji from their class, but the guy replied that he didn't know her. There were rumors that she was involved in the doctrine of the Second Coming, but the guy did not know anyone and never visited it himself. Jonah was surprised, because everyone around him considered him a sectarian. The guy thought it was convenient because no one was bothering him. The main character believed that if he told the truth, he would definitely become very popular, but he was not interested in popularity. The girl was surprised by his answer, but it seemed to her that he also believed that he could become popular. The guy didn't see the point in this because it didn't bother the one he liked. The main character was stunned to learn that Yehan liked someone, and then she decided to support him, saying that he was right. The girl was upset. She had never even thought about him liking anyone before. Jonah remembered their school activities and thought that maybe he would act differently in front of the person he liked. At first glance, Yehan was unfriendly, but in fact, he was very nice. The main character didn't understand why she thought so much about this guy. The girl remembered her poem from childhood and suggested that her clue was the thought that Yekan was in a sect. And now, when she knew that it was not so, this check was broken. Jonah was sitting in her room doing her homework when she heard a knock on the door and Yekan's voice, who asked her to go out for a minute. The main character did not understand what he needed, and the guy asked her to show him her scratched hand. Ekin began to adjust the patch. He believed that the guy believed that it was poorly glued and could fall off. The guy told Jonah to tell him if it came unglued again so he could fix it again. The girl looked at Yehan, who was worried about her, but he didn't understand what he had done wrong and why the girl was looking at him so intently. The main character, without saying anything, continued to look at the guy. Jonah remembered how her uncle told her as a little girl about what love really is. He said that it was a battle with the desire to become one with another person, but he didn't have time to finish because he received a scolding from Jonah's mom. And then he touched the baby's cheeks and promised to tell her everything when she grew up. But he told her to remember that all of their maternal relatives were weak in the face of desires. As soon as the obstacles in front of them disappeared, they all immediately rushed ahead. The guys were sitting in the living room on the sofa, and the girl, forgetting about all the obstacles, kissed the guy on the cheek. Having come to her senses, she gave him a tasty slap in the face and asked what it was like to kiss. Yehan didn't understand why she was asking him this question. They sat and looked at each other, not knowing what to say. The guy interrupted the silence. He wanted to know if the main character liked him. The girl didn't know what to tell him and grabbed his hand, jumped up from the sofa, and ran to her room screaming about the pain in her hand. Yekan didn't understand what happened to her hand, and as she ran away, she simply said that she needed a break. Having locked herself in her room, the main character lay down on the bed and crawled under the covers. She didn't understand why she did it and what she was even thinking about when she decided to kiss her classmate. His face was so defenseless and close that she could not overcome the temptation. When Yehan was so close to her, all reasons disappeared somewhere. The main character thought that his reaction was not so bad. The next day, the girl was sitting with her friends in the park, but mentally she was somewhere far away, and then Janie asked her to return to them. Jonah watched the couple standing nearby, and I asked the girls how they would react if they liked someone, and this person suddenly kissed them. The girls did not understand how he could kiss him without permission. They believed that he should have been hit, and perhaps even killed. The main character thought this was too much, but Clara believed that since he was not convinced that she agreed to this, he should get it in full. But Janie decided that if she also liked this guy, then she would not mind. But if not, then she was ready to take extreme measures. The main character believed that she was up to her ears in shit because she was fine. But Ekin, in addition to the kiss on the right, received a tasty slap in the face on the left. The girl still didn't understand why she did it and didn't know whether she should apologize for that kiss. She decided that she had to explain herself to him first. The main character's friends noticed that she was too strange that day. The girls were cleaning, and their friends suggested Jonah go for a walk after they finished. But all Jonah's thoughts were about Johanna, about the fact that they not only lived under the same roof, but also sat next to each other in class. The girl decided to collect her thoughts in a heap. 2 people had to clean the corridor, but she didn't know who her partner was. Yeji joined her, and the girl did not understand why she was her partner. The main character greeted her, but her partner simply walked by. Then Jonah decided that they would do this cleaning in silence. The main character remembered that Yehan said that he didn't know Yeji, but she was sure that her classmate knew him, and she was interested in what she thought about him. Dust fell on Jonah from above, and then she asked her partner to take revenge on the wall, and not on the railing. But the indignant girl suggested that the main character get up and do it herself. The main character thought that normal people usually apologize in this case. Jonah didn't understand why her classmate hated her. They finally finished cleaning the hallway. Jonah believed that they could go since they had already finished their work. Both girls were very scared when they heard the question about whether they were finished, because the girls did not hear anyone approaching them. It was Yehan. Everyone laughed at Yeji, who fell down in surprise. They noticed that Jonah was also confused by their appearance. From what she heard, Jonah also fell to the floor. Yehan was worried about her and almost said her name out loud. He wanted to run up to her to make sure that everything was okay with her and help her get up. Those around him began to look askance at him and laughed even harder because the second girl also fell. They couldn't believe that it was so slippery there. The girl standing next to Yehan thought that he was cute, and the guy, looking at her, apologized to her for pushing her. Jonah asked her partner how she was feeling and said that her butt hurt very much. The girl thought to herself that she planned to fall much more carefully. Yeji was indignant in response. She believed that the main character was laughing at her, and Jonah couldn't understand what was wrong with her classmate. The girl told the main character that she couldn't pretend to be good, and therefore she shouldn't do it. Jonah was furious. She couldn't understand what was going on. She didn't understand when she was pretending to be good. Yeji considered Jonah a hypocrite. She was sure that the girl fell specifically to disgrace her. She was sure that only idiots could do something like that. Yehan asked the girl what she said to the main character. Yeji did not expect that her classmate would decide to talk to her and was scared by this. The girl replied that she didn't tell her anything, and Yehan didn't understand why she did it, because Jonah fell on purpose so that she wouldn't be so ashamed, and all she needed to do was just thank her classmate. She pointed at Jonah and said that she was very upset about this whole situation. He believed that if a person was helped, then he was simply obliged to thank him in return. Yeji agreed with him and decided to approach her classmate. She seemed to squeeze out that same thank you. The main character was angry with her classmate because it seemed to her that she did not do it sincerely. It seemed to her that it was sarcasm. Yehan asked his classmate to thank her normal partner because from what she had already said, Jonah did not understand anything at all. The guy did not expect that this girl would listen to him so obediently. Meanwhile, Jonah became angrier because she forgot about the water. And as luck would have it, only her bottom got wet. If someone sees this, they will definitely start calling her an asshole. She was sure that in this case she would be teased until graduation. But someone suddenly pulled the girl aside. It was Yehan, who tried to save her reputation. But the main character did not understand where he came from and what he was doing. And the guy replied that she needed to cover herself so that people would not think anything unnecessary. She began to make excuses for him, saying that she hadn't peed herself, but that someone had simply spilled water. And the guy tried to assure him that he hadn't thought of anything like that. Jonah was upset that Yehan saw her fall. The girl was sure that everyone would definitely understand that she was wearing men's clothes because they were too big. But the guy tried to assure her that if they tied it like this, no one would notice anything. He told her to put it on jacket and go home. She leaned over to Yehan and said that if they tie it this way, it will definitely wrinkle. The girl was so close to him that he was a little scared. And he jumped away from her! Jonah didn't understand what happened and why Ekin was so shy away from her, but he himself didn't have an answer to this question. She didn't understand why the guy acted as if he didn't even want to touch her. The girl didn't understand his reaction and compared herself to a beetle, believing that this is exactly how people behave with beetles. The girl was very offended by him, but the guy replied that it wasn't the bugs. He just behaved this way in case that disaster happened again. The main character still didn't understand why she was so shy, but the fact that he called her kiss a disaster made the girl even more upset. Jonah wondered if he was really that disgusted by what she did. She thought, of course, it was only her fault that she kissed him. The girl thought that even if her heart was broken, she was obliged to apologize for the kiss and asked him for forgiveness for kissing him. But the guy did not need such an apology. Sunwoo approached them and asked if he and Yeji were the ones they saw at the store last time. The guys were surprised because they did not expect that someone could catch them. And even more so, they did not think that anyone had seen them in the store. She was unrecognizable in the store because she was covered from head to toe, but he was sure that it was she in the yellow hoodie. Jonah asked if he was also in the store then, and Yekun tried to stop her so that she would not say too much. Yekun believed that the girl should deny everything so that this cunning fox would not understand anything. But the main character did not see the point in this because he had already seen everything. Yekun considered her a fool because she decided to give up so easily and confess everything. Jonah was upset because Yehun called her a fool. The girl was interested in whether the guy would spread rumors about them. He was interested in whether these two were dating, but they unanimously shouted that they were not dating. He didn't understand why they hid together, went shopping together, and kissed. In his opinion, this was absolutely contrary to common sense. Yekun believed that all this had nothing to do with the matter. He was interested in whether the interlocutor would spread rumors. The guy assured them that he had nothing like that in his mind. He just wanted to make sure that everything was exactly as he heard. The guys breathed a sigh of relief when they heard that no rumors about them would circulate around the school. Sonu noticed the main character's friends aside, who were just looking for her. And then he told the guys that he didn't know what their secrets were, but he was sure that it would be very difficult to hide them from Janie and Clara, who would most likely be very angry when they learned about all this later. After they explained everything, Sonu decided to leave the secret couple alone. The main character thought that they were lucky that this guy caught them. After school, they drove home sitting opposite each other and corresponded. Jonah suggested that since Sonu did not leave Yeji, then most likely he was also a participant in the exercise. But Yehan knew for sure that he was not on the list of participants. He told the girl that they previously studied together in high school, but the guy thought that they would never cross paths again and therefore never communicated with him. The girl left the carriage before Yekun and thus ran away from him home. That same evening at the main character's house, Jonah didn't understand what happened to the tap again, and she still needed to wash Yehan's school uniform. The girl received a message from the Housing and Communal Services Service about the water being turned off for several days due to repair work. After the water supply, rusty water could come out. Jonah looked into her neighbor's room and asked if he had done the laundry. He said that he put it. Usually he washed his things separately, but this time he had few dark things, and therefore, along with his school uniform, he put it in too. But if the girl didn't like it, then she could take out her things because the washing started quite recently. Remembering that the water might become rusty, the main character said that it no longer mattered. Having opened the washing machine, the girl realized that they were in trouble. Their school uniforms were covered in dirty stains. The main character did not understand what they should do now, because tomorrow they had to go to school. Yekun said that their uniform was dark, so everything was not so scary. He knew that they would not be able to take things to the laundry, since the water was turned off in the entire area. Jonah was very upset and almost cried, sitting on the floor and holding dirty things in her hands. Then her neighbor suggested using bottled water for washing, but the girl called him crazy. Since he came up with the idea of using drinking water to wash things, she suggested going to a 24-hour laundromat in the neighboring area. But Yekun insisted that they should just buy bottled water and use it for washing, and then they could drink the rest. He did not understand who even goes to the neighboring area just to wash things. However, Jonah was sure that they needed to save money because the list of things they needed money for was too long. The girl could not contact her parents, but they transferred her at least a little pocket money. But her neighbor needed to live on what he had because she was sure that his parents would not give him money, even if they will be asked about it. She was sure that they would thank him for breaking all ties with them, so there was no talk of any help. The guy was upset by Jonah's words, and he simply turned around and left, leaving her alone with her dirty things. He took Jonah's bike key and called her, saying they were going to the 24-hour laundromat. When they set off, the girl thought about who was pulling her tongue with such sentences. Yekun believed that they should have gone by bus. It would have been much faster, and the main character called him a malingerer, having said that they are only 10 minutes away. They were going to the laundry in order to save money, so the main character saw no point in going by bus. While riding the bus, they killed 2 birds with 1 stone, saved money, and exercised. The guy turned so sharply that Jonah almost fell off the bike and said that there was another advantage to their trip. They could not meet their classmates. He told her to hold him tighter. It bothered him that she held on to him so precariously. The main character willingly obeyed her classmate and wrapped both arms around his waist. She thought about hugging Yekon, and the guy seemed to read her thoughts and said that if it was unpleasant for her to do this, then she could imagine that there was a stone in his place. She didn't understand why she should hug the stone and was sure that she would think about hugging it, because no one knows how to read other people's thoughts. When she hugged her friends, they were much softer, but Ekin was completely different. He was stronger. A man's body was definitely different from a woman's, even if they were the same build. The girl decided that not every man was like that. She considered this guy special. She wondered if his stomach was soft, and she decided to feel it. The guy didn't really like that Jonah pinched him, and he offered to throw her off. Then she said that she was just joking. But to herself, she noted with a grin that his stomach was hard. Yehan asked where they should go next, and the girl said that first they need to get to a convenience store and then turn left from it. The main character really wanted to talk to Yehan, but she didn't know what, because she had no idea what he liked. She was interested in whether they had common interests. She tried to remember what they had talked about before, but all their conversations revolved around teaching and her uncle. They always talked only about routine, but she needed a normal conversation. The girl tried to remember what normal teenagers usually talk about. She thought that lights couldn't even become friends. The girl finally spoke and asked what her neighbor would like to do. She was interested in what he would like to do if their situation was resolved for the better. The guy hadn't thought about it yet, but the main character didn't believe his words because he studied so hard. He couldn't believe that everything could turn out well for him. Ekin was sure that his father would sooner or later find Uncle Jonah because he was too stubborn a person. There was something he didn't tell his neighbor, but there was one thing he couldn't help but think about. The two were like each other's reflection in a mirror. But even if the chances were only 1%, he had no choice but to continue to hope. His future depended on Takmujin. The guys finally made it to the laundry room. Drying was supposed to take 50 minutes, and then they had to go straight home. The guy decided to ask the main character what her uncle was like. The girl was surprised that her neighbor was also interested in something. Jonah thought for a while and began to talk about this man. He was the mystery of their family. The first time her uncle distinguished himself was in high school, when he found a way to cheat in online games. Then he began to disappear more and more often due to various offenses. Yakan believed that they had a good relationship, since the girl knew so many details. And then Jonah told that her uncle was a late child and was practically raised by her mother. The girl was sure that her interlocutor was interested in why they trusted this man with all the money, but she herself did not know the answer to this question, most likely because they trusted him. She was more upset by her uncle's betrayal than by the loss of money. The main character was upset by all these memories. Yakan didn't know how best to behave in such a situation, and decided to ask his classmate what was happening to her. It seemed to him that his interlocutor burst into tears, and then he asked her what was wrong. The girl said that she thought that she had already calmed down, but she was in great pain. She no longer considered this man to be her uncle. Yakan was still trying to understand whether his neighbor was really crying, and the girl did not understand why her uncle took from them the money that they had managed to save with such difficulty. She was afraid that they would never be able to catch this man, and they would be in prison for the rest of their lives. Run with him. The guy promised her that he would try to prevent this, but the main character did not understand what a high school student in the amount of one piece could do. Yahan noticed that she was actually crying, but did not know how to act due to the fact that he had never been in such a situation before. He wondered if there was at least one way to stop her tears. At the same time, two people were approaching this same laundry. The girl was indignant at the late notification about the water shutoff, but she stopped her monologue when she saw something interesting behind the glass. She saw two people kissing in the laundry room. But in fact, the guy just grabbed the girl by her cheeks and promised to take full responsibility. The main character did not understand what responsibility he was talking about, and Yehan thought that he was close to kissing her. She wondered if he was going to take responsibility for her, but he was talking about money. The guy will not allow her to work at the factory, but will find some kind of part-time job. because there were many profitable options. Therefore, the main character should not have cried. Jahan assumed that because of them, people could not enter the laundry. They all crowded at the door and watched the teenagers. The girl thanked Jahan for supporting her. She thought that all these were just words, but they made her feel much better. The guy didn't understand why she didn't believe him and considered everything he said to be just words. After waiting for the things to dry, they left the laundry room and got ready to go home. Then the guy told Jonah to hold on tight to him because they would be rolling down the hill. He believed that she needed to be careful, including when cleaning the school corridors, because if she continued in the same spirit, she would definitely get hurt. The girl laughed, but Jahan didn't understand what was so funny about what he said to her. They finally moved towards the house. Jonah stood up straight on her bike and screamed joyfully, and the guy, worried about her, asked the girl to sit down. The next morning, the girl was lying in her bed and poking at her phone. She searched on the internet what a man does if he likes a woman. The usually cold Jahan behaved completely differently towards her, and there had to be an explanation for this. The girl was sure that intellectuals on the internet should have known the reason for his such behavior. One of a man's courtship strategies is his desire to help. The girl was sure that Jahan was definitely worried about her and wanted to help her, but this was just one point. But the girl did not despair and believed that it must be true. The second point was that the man comes every time the girl he likes calls him. Jonah decided to check and called Jahan. He responded instantly. She didn't understand how he managed to come so quickly, but the guy said that he had gone down to drink water and asked why she called him. But the main character closed the door in front of him and said that he could go his own way. Jahan could not understand her behavior at all. He came as soon as she called him, but this could have been just a coincidence, and then the girl moved on to point 3, in which it was said that a man turns to a woman with the most ridiculous requests. And the girl decided to ask him for 1,000,001. Jahan was dumbfounded by her request. And then the main character decided that she had gone a little too far. The guy burst into her room and asked if she urgently needed this money. He had not yet had time to check how much he had left in his account, but Jonah said that she was just joking. The girl could not believe that absolutely all points converged. She decided that the matter was taking a serious turn. The guy said that he left and asked not to call him again, and the main character moved on to the next point, which said that men do not hold back their emotions in front of the person they like. The girl thought that Jahan not only didn't laugh next to her, he never even smiled, and that's why she just wanted to see his smile. But she couldn't imagine how she could achieve this. The main character decided that she must make him smile at least once. But first, she needed to complete the test, and point 5 said that his eyes, looking at his beloved, should have been filled with tenderness. The girl was at school at that moment, and therefore began to look at everyone around her. She saw some of the guys flirting. Some were filled with affection, joy, and happiness. When she saw Jahan, she didn't understand what his eyes were talking about. The girl seemed to be trying to drill into him with her eyes, and the guy felt it. But in his eyes, she saw only emptiness. However, the main character decided that he was simply hiding his emotions at school, because at home, he was completely different with her. She believed that she could achieve the last point only after she made him smile. Jahan thought that he definitely needed to talk to his neighbor at home and tell her something important.